Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 15th episode of the BadMotoGP-Show. Unfortunately, I have some bad news, which is I recorded the episode with Maddi Scordia. Maddi is a MotoGP journalist, and she shared a lot of insights, and it was a really interesting conversation I had with her. Unfortunately, I wanted to switch platforms because I graduated from university right now, and so I don't have a free Zoom account anymore. So I thought, okay, I wanted to make a switch anyways, because the framing in Zoom isn't necessarily the best in my opinion. So I decided to switch to Riverside FM, and when I recorded the podcast, it actually only recorded me and my audio, and not Maddi's, which is in my opinion very stupid. But yeah, at the end, it's my fault. I should have tested this before and came in prepared better. But it is what it is. You make mistakes, you learn from it, and therefore I'm sitting here by myself and trying to recap the whole thing. And I just wanted to give you my insights, first of all, of the Red Bull Ring, because as you may have seen, I went there live to enjoy the races. And we have to talk about sprint races, we have to talk about Dorna and their incredibly stupid marketing campaign and whatever they're trying to achieve with the sprint races. There have been news about Remy and KTM, a potential exit from MotoGP for him, and KTM bringing up Augusto Fernandez. So if you want to hear my thoughts on this, and as well the races, of course. So basically those are the topics that I would like to recap by myself. Hopefully you don't mind that this time this is a monologue and not a conversation. But hopefully it works. So basically the Red Bull Ring, I can recommend it to every fan out there. It's not necessarily my favorite track because in my opinion the layout is quite boring. I prefer tracks like Jerez or like Mugello, for example. But from a fan experience, it's very good. We sat at the first chicane, or at the new chicane. It's the second and third corner. I believe it's called 2A and 2B right now. And from there on, you can see the riders exiting turn 1 and obviously going through the chicane, and also the entry into turn 3. Then for a while you don't see them when they head to turn 4, but coming out of turn 4, those 2 or 3 left-handers you can see again, and then they disappear in the distance. So you can see a fair amount of racing. It's good. Basically, I would say from a percentage perspective, English is a difficult language. From a percentage, I fucked it up again. It's late. I hope you don't mind. From a percentage of what you can see from the track, I would say it's maybe like Jerez. The best one's definitely Valencia, but there are tracks where you see not so much as well. So I can recommend it. It's well organized. The parking was very good. We had no traffic at the highway. We were directed to our parking and headed to the track on Friday, which was very good. Fortunately, I worked for a company last year that's sponsoring a little bit at the Red Bull Ring, so they gave me for Saturday and for Sunday I believe it's the bus parking, but you can basically go directly to the track, which is right next to the fan zone at turn 1. So we hadn't we didn't need to walk so long to get to the track, but also the normal parking works brilliantly. The Red Bull really knows how to organize an event, and also there were concession stands which were good, mostly toilets everywhere for free. You could basically enjoy the race. What was a little bit stupid that a security member came to us and said we weren't allowed to use umbrellas because they're too dangerous. I have never experienced a dangerous umbrella in my life, but yeah, every time they think of something new. In Portugal, you weren't allowed to bring food into the track. In Valencia, you weren't allowed to eat on the grandstands. Yeah, it is what it is, you know. But yeah, generally I can only recommend the Red Bull Ring. It has been very good. The behavior of the fans was good. I mean, there was one instance where a drunk guy was not necessarily yeah, a gentleman to my girlfriend, but it sucks that people like this exist, but I guess you can't fault the Red Bull Ring for it. It's not like the same amount of idiots like in Assen, where it's like a cultural problem. It's like one drunk idiot, which is a topic in itself. I would like to discuss with Maddi probably someday, which is the general experience women have in the paddock and at the races from a sexual harassment standpoint. And yeah, but that's not the point I'm trying to make in this episode, but just to tease you a little bit, this one's coming up, should be rather interesting. And yeah, there's nothing really more to say. The Red Bull Ring is a really, really solid race. I can only recommend it if you ever want to go to a MotoGP race and are here in the area. Assen, not so much. Sachsenring, I've never been there. And yeah, Misano is also very good. Jerez is very good. Valencia is very good. Portugal. Excuse me. Portugal is a little bit tricky, but yeah, I would definitely recommend Valencia, Jerez, Misano, and Austria. Those are by far my favorite. And Austria is up there. It's a good race. And yeah, during the weekend, we had the news that there will be sprint races next year in MotoGP, which is, in my opinion, very stupid, because it's like a quick fix solution to a bigger problem. When we think of MotoGP over the last 10 years, we came from a series which had CRT bikes because only Honda and Yamaha were competitive due to the financial crisis of 2008. Kawasaki pulled out and Suzuki pulled out. Ducati wasn't necessarily competitive, so we have the 4 factory bikes who were fighting for the championship, and then the satellite teams who were also good. But apart from that, MotoGP was basically shit. It was boring, but you know, Dorna did a fairly good job to get MotoGP out of this dark hole. But now they are in a good situation where they had where they right now have 5 manufacturers, and yeah, or is it 6? Let me think. Aprilia, Ducati, KTM, Yamaha, Honda, and Suzuki. Now it's 6. I'm sorry. Next year it will be 5. With the Suzuki exit, they have 6 manufacturers. They have a very, very even playing field where basically everybody can score a podium, which is very good, very interesting. But somehow they managed to still fuck it up, because we don't have close racing anymore. It's like Formula 1 in last season, the season before, that we have dirty air, we can't follow each other. Then we have the ride height devices, which make it further difficult because of front tire pressures. All those things are like the big issues of MotoGP, I would say, right now from a racing perspective. And sprint races definitely aren't the solution to those problems. And also we have next season, when we have 20 races like this season, 40 races for the riders, I can't imagine how difficult it is from a physical perspective to even race one race. And Fabio said after the race that he's basically doing qualifying laps every lap in the race, and it was so exhausting. And Then to hear from Camilo Espeleta, Jorge Viergas, the FIM president, I believe that's his name, and Hervé Porcheral, that they basically decided this without any consent from the riders and were like, okay, fuck it, we will do sprint races, deal with it. We have the power, you don't, which, yeah, isn't, in my opinion, the way to handle business. Maybe this is the start of a MotoGP Riders Association. Maybe the riders can find together to build unity. And it would be, in my opinion, very beneficial to have a Riders Association, a Manufacturers Association, and a Dorna FIM Association. And those interests have to agree to, or those parties have to agree to a major rule change like this. So, yeah. Sprint races ain't gonna cut it. It will make life very, very difficult for riders. And yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people who compare Superbike to MotoGP. First of all, Superbike has fewer races, I believe 36 races in a season. And also a Superbike is, with no offense to the riders, but not as difficult to ride as a MotoGP bike from a physical perspective, because I actually looked this up. Loris Bas, who was for sprint races, who said, okay, racers crying about racing, blah blah blah. You can see it on Twitter. It was, in my opinion, a little bit embarrassing, because when he rode in MotoGP, he was on the back of the grid on the Vincia Ducati. And he was 4 seconds slower in qualifying in Jerez in 2017 than Pecco was right now. And you have to imagine 4 seconds, even though, yes, you have more power, you have ride-height devices, yada, 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 but it's still physically exhausting. When you can brake later, when you can accelerate fast, it's just more physical. And when riders like Fabio or Aleix come out and say they don't like the idea, it's stupid, it's too dangerous, it's too much to ask for, then a rider who is like 4 seconds slower at his best, judging about it, I don't know if that's necessarily the smartest idea by him, but yeah, he's entitled to have an opinion. I have a different one. I would suggest to listen to riders who actually know how to ride the modern MotoGP bikes. And yeah, we are potentially looking at even more races, because I have heard rumors about MotoGP going to Brazil. MotoGP, of course, Finland is in the mix. Turkey is apparently in the mix. And a new one, which was pretty interesting, is Kazakhstan, because one member of Dorna, I would actually have to find out who exactly that is, has connections to Kazakhstan. And it wouldn't be surprising, but yeah, I don't believe we will get 3 or 4 new races next year, but let's say it's 1 or 2. It's like Finland and Turkey, which to me are the most probable. Then we still have 22 regular races and 22 sprint races. I mean, the downsides, in my opinion, are overweighing the upsides. But yeah, I made a tweet about it. Let me quickly look it up, because it's easier to read out, which basically lays down the pros and cons of sprint races, where to me a cons is we have more stress on the riders' bodies, obviously. I would say that rider who suffers maybe from arm pump, which was actually kind of interesting to see live at the Red Bull Ring. You don't see this stuff on TV, that a lot of riders were holding their forearms after the race in the cool down lap. And as Fabio said, it's so physically demanding to ride those MotoGP bikes that I can't really understand how someone who never has ridden in their life can come out and say, oh no, they can do double the amount of race, it's no problem. We have more risk of injuries. I mean, the first 10 laps of a race are usually the most dangerous ones, because we have to start, we have everything so compressed, and yeah, just look at Catalonia, where Takaka Nakagami dive bombed into the first corner. Shit like this happens, if you want or not, and it's too dangerous to have like double the risk of those first 3 laps where everything is so condensed, and then when you have sprint races, everybody's going all out. Qualifying becomes even more important because you don't have the time to make up the lost time you have on the start when you start further back. So it's very, very risky in my opinion. And also points are a little bit inflationary, because when you imagine you trail someone in the championship by, let's say like Aleix, I believe it's 32 points or whatever, like 30 points. And you only have 5 races to make up the 40 points. You will push much more than when you have 10 races, because okay, I can be a little bit more, I would say, responsible with my risk taking and make these points up when the situation occurs. So I believe it will actually take a little bit out of the urge to overtake, a little bit out of the urge to make or to score points and to make more out of your race, because you have simply more of it. There's no need when you can make it up later on, and we have higher costs, especially when you consider the manufacturers who have to provide the engines and the bikes. And yeah, they said in the press conference that basically the track time is the same, but the stress on a MotoGP bike in a 10-lap race is much higher than in free practice 4, and also the risk of crashes. More often than not, people crash in the race and not in FP4, so you have more cost to repair those bikes. To basically, I believe Takaka Nakagami and Alex Marquez for sure, but a couple of people who had to put an engine to the side because they destroyed it in a crash. And imagine this happens like a few times over a season where you have double the amount of races but still only the same components. It's, in my opinion, even though it's the same track time, more potential costs, because there are so many things that you have to consider when you compare an FP3 and FP4 session to a sprint race. And there's less time to practice. Practice is important because you have to set up the bike, you have to get comfortable on the bike, on the track, and when you don't have enough practice, especially when it comes to rookies, but in general, you aren't as secure on a bike. So it's like the basic thing, practice makes perfect. This is like in every situation in life. So the more you practice, the more safely you can do it. Like drive a motorcycle on the street, the first time you do it, it will be more dangerous and you will feel less comfortable than after 100 times. And same with the MotoGP bike, when you don't feel 100% confident on your bike and you don't have the perfect setup for it, it may cause chaos, yes, but it could also lead to crashes or lead to whatever, where we are back at the more risk of injuries point I mentioned earlier. And we have at the moment fairly boring races, because a couple of races were good this season, but the field isn't as compressed. They are spread out, and even live you can see these things more clearly than on TV, because you see the bikes coming by with like a half second, 1 second, but they aren't battling, and it's due to the front tire pressures, it's due to the aero, what I mentioned earlier, and therefore you don't add much excitement if the races are still boring. If you take the Red Bull Ring, for example, the first 10 laps weren't necessarily the most interesting. It got interesting later on when Fabio caught up and Fabio did Fabio stuff, but more boring races won't fix the boring races problem, And the actual problems aren't fixed with this, we have less anticipation for the main race. So let's imagine you are a new fan who isn't balls deep into MotoGP, and you watch the sprint race and you're like, "Meh, it was okay." You already have seen a race and maybe you don't feel the need to see one race, see the main race. And a good example for this is like the Super Bowl or the NBA Finals. We have in the NBA Finals a maximum of 7 games, and when you miss game 2, you don't really care because like you can still watch game 3. But the Super Bowl is only one time. Same with the MotoGP race. There's only one race, and therefore I like the idea that the premier class of MotoGP comes a little bit at a premium with only one race, and it's not necessarily the best thing, in my opinion, to just have more races. More races won't fix anything. Where we come to the only positive for me, which is like money. Dorna will make a lot of money from the sprint races because people would rather watch sprint races than FP4, for example. And more TV time, more sponsors, you name it. And Dorna is apparently not in a very good state financially because of the COVID thing, where they managed to put on races and had like a good 2 years, but still money is missing, and they try to recover this so badly. But it's crazy to me because Dorna officially, and Maddi pointed this out, officially is a marketing company, but they do everything wrong when it comes to marketing. Let's play with the races. I mean, do we really need 23, 24 races? Or would it be more interesting to have a maximum of 20 races? I mean, I could live very well with 18. For example, and there are, in my opinion, no need for 4 races in Spain and 1 race in Portugal, because actually when I went to Portugal, the interest was absolutely zero. I know it's like the second race in Portugal. They had the first race where Fabio won, and the second race at the end of the season where Pecco won. That's the one I went to. So maybe the interest wasn't as great because of this. But when you have like so many races in such a small area, people will be like, okay, I don't need to go to Portugal. I can go to Jerez. So I would say keep the Portugal one and have like 1 or 2 races in Spain. But yeah, just you don't need to flood the market with races. Just put it at a little bit of a premium and condense the season a little bit. So and pick out the good events. I don't know about the overseas events. I can only speak for the European events, which I mentioned where I was earlier. But just pick out the events that work good for the fans, which work good for the manufacturers. In my opinion, there's also no need to race in Qatar, because you don't have a market where motorcycle manufacturers can sell motorcycles, because the market isn't necessarily as big. The fan culture there isn't the best. When you compare it with Formula One, most of the fans in the Arabic countries, which was especially in Abu Dhabi last year, there are Europeans who just travel there. So yeah, just to make it for money, I don't really know if that's really the best thing, but okay, it is what it is. But also when it comes to promoting the sport, because Dorna is an actual marketing company, but they fail to market everything. They own MotoGP since 1994, I believe, and they developed it to a certain point, but now they don't know how to use the internet. They aren't interacting with fans. Instead, they shut fan accounts down. I mean, my old account was shut down. GP Sillies had videos taken down, which she recorded in the pit lane. So she recorded with her own phone videos of her experience at the MotoGP race in Austin, and they were taken down. There are a number of instances like this where Dorna just takes them down. Actually, Dorna doesn't even take them down. It's La Liga. They hired La Liga to enforce the copyright rules. So yeah, I don't necessarily know if that's the case. If that's the best case scenario. I'm sorry. I'm very sure that this is the case. So yeah, Dorna is an absolute disaster because they don't know how to promote the series. They are running out of money, which they showed desperately with the sprint races. They don't plan things through. They don't consult the riders when it comes to those things. And in general, Dorna is very, very resistant to constructive criticism. There are stories of people coming to Dorna and saying, hey, why don't you do this would be much better. And they're just getting laughed at, you know. And for example, Dorna is charging media companies so much money that they are allowed to cover their sport, which is absolutely ridiculous. If you want to go to the paddock, if you want to interview riders, if you want to do this and do basically free advertising for Dorna and MotoGP, you have to pay them so much money that it's not valuable if you're a media company. So look at it. Who's really reporting on MotoGP? You don't see it like on Yahoo, for example. And when you see press conferences at other sporting events, for example, the UFC makes a great job with this. They have the press conference where you can sit as a fan, see the press conference, the media talks to the fighters, and then afterwards the fans can ask questions. It's really entertaining because the fighters are interacting differently with each other. MotoGP is rather boring, and also the fan experience is much more the tension, the anticipation for the fights. It's so huge when you involve the fans, but the MotoGP press conference are held in a tiny room where barely the media fits in. And I could highly recommend the sprint racing press conference to you. I don't know if it's on YouTube, but it's for sure on the MotoGP Video Pass. It's so embarrassing the way Camilo Espeleta and Jorge Viegas and Hervé Porcheral interacted with the media, where the media members asked very good questions, in my opinion, and the responses were just very embarrassing, like in a way where you're like, no, we do this because we have the power and you don't. Shut the fuck up. You don't know what you're talking about. Basically, this was the feeling I got watching the press conference. Actually, I made a tweet about this as well, which kind of sums it up. Where I said the questions at the sprint race conferences were very good. Press conference were very good, but the answers were just embarrassing. For everybody who didn't watch the summary would be, we don't care about the riders, we didn't discuss the idea with them, we just want to make more money. And yeah, that's just embarrassing for me. And you could watch it. Camilo Espeleta seems like a very, very difficult person to work with, like very stubborn. Whatever he thinks is right, and there's no need for criticism. And also, like, I heard stories of people who applied to MotoGP to be a social media content creator, a marketing team. They all get shut down because they're just trying to save money. When you go there, you get the job and they don't pay you, they hire and fire. It's an absolute disaster. And yeah, maybe the best thing that could happen is Dorna going broke, because they obviously are desperate for money. And then the company, and then MotoGP being sold to like Liberty Media, who, by the way, own Formula One and know actually how to promote stuff, because you see the ratings of MotoGP is so pathetic. During the Silverstone Grand Prix, they achieved the same amount of viewers in the United Kingdom than British Superbike when they went to Silverstone. So in the UK, the MotoGP generates the same amount of interest than BSB. The ticket sales were in Silverstone, I believe, on a Sunday, 40,000? Yeah, should be 40,000, I don't know. Something around the ballpark, not far away from 100,000, And Formula One was like 300,000, maybe 400,000. And I would argue that MotoGP has a better product, even though it's a little bit declining. But they're still absolutely fucking it up when it comes to promoting their product, which is a really, 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 really big shame. Also, when we talk about really big shame, it's time to talk about KTM. The common opinion is that they will sack Remy in favor of Augusto Fernandez, which makes absolutely no sense for me. I mean, you probably know that I'm cool with Remy. I like him a lot, and I'm a little bit biased there, but I'm trying to be as objective as possible, which basically means Remy is on an absolute shitbox. He's outperforming his teammate, and he has 1 year of experience right now. So, and he's a world champion. So if you're KTM, you have a rider who gained this experience, who, I don't know, maybe he's difficult to work with. You don't know this stuff from the outside. Only KTM and Remy know. But so basically, he's doing everything he can on this shitbox to be competitive. He's beating his teammate, who's also a rookie, and you could argue that they were on par last year. And he isn't that far away from the factory guys, who, by the way, aren't achieving anything on those bikes. I mean, Brad Binder had the podium in Qatar, and Miguel Oliveira had the win in Indonesia, which was a rain race. But apart from those two moments, KTM is so far off the pace. And to blame a rider for it after just half a season under his belt and fire him isn't, in my opinion, the best way to treat riders, first of all. But it's also, from a business perspective, very, very bad, because you have a rider who has a rookie season, who have learned all this stuff with a lot of practice, because this season we have 4 practice sessions, we have a warm-up, and trying to replace him with a rookie who knows nothing about the bike. I mean, no offense against Augusto Fernandez, but he will be a rookie and he will have to learn everything Remy learned with only 2 free practice sessions and a sprint race and a main race where it's even more difficult to be a rookie than it is right now. And I don't understand it. It's so embarrassing, because you have Ika Lecuona dropped after, I believe, 2 years as the youngest rider at the grid, in favor of Raul Fernandez, who was promoted prematurely, even though he didn't want to. He wanted to stay in Moto2 because he didn't feel like he's ready, and there were speculations that he wanted to go to Yamaha, so KTM forced him to move up, which they announced without the rider's consent. Then Danilo Petrucci was dropped 1 year into his KTM career after Remy got promoted, which, okay, shit happens. Danilo Petrucci is a veteran. He had his experience in MotoGP, but yeah, still not a good look, but I could understand it. Then the way they treated Miguel Oliveira was, in my opinion, also not very gentlemanlike, because you have a rider who is he's factually your most successful rider. He won all the Grand Prix KTM ever won, except from from Brad Binder in Austria and in Brno. And Miguel almost beat Marc Marquez in Germany. Miguel beat Fabio in Catalonia. And he is basically the best rider. When he has a bike underneath him that works, he is a motherfucker. And KTM isn't able to provide the bike to him and to everybody. So they decided to thank him with offering him a demotion to the satellite team, to KTM Tech 3, which is, not a good look, you know? So KTM has a history of treating riders like shit. Simon Patterson from therace.com had a very good article about this today. I would encourage you to read it. And you have like Remy, where I think he actually can make good progress. When you see what he did last year, he can be a solid MotoGP rider, of course. And to sack him after just half a season where you're like, okay, you have no chance of being there for next season, is just embarrassing to me, especially when you want to replace him with a rookie. But they are also still negotiating with Miguel Oliveira, because the Miguel Oliveira Aprilia negotiations apparently are more difficult than everybody thought. So it could be an option, and then the RNF spot could be open for Remy and for Raul, which would be a little bit of a Cinderella story that those two again switch teams together. But it's just embarrassing in my opinion. And I would like to discuss the races now, because I feel like I talked about everything which happened like outside of the track. And now it's time to dive into the actual races, where Pecco absolutely dominated. He got the whole shot from the first corner and he was gone. Towards the end, his front tire was a little bit down, so Fabio caught up with him, but Fabio never was in contention of the victory and all this. What if 2 laps more? But they weren't 2 laps more, so you have to be in front after the, I believe, 28 laps. So Pecco was good. Is he a championship contender now? In my opinion, not, because Fabio is just too good. I said it last episode that Fabio had a very, very bad Assen GP and was unfortunate with the long lap and the rear tire in Silverstone. So he had a series of 2 bad races, but generally Fabio always gets the maximum out of each race, which is why he's the championship leader. And now he showed it again, because he was such a motherfucker in Spielberg. He never should have been on the podium, because the Yamaha is trash, and the 2 Ducatis should have smoked him easily. But Fabio is so incredibly skilled. He is doing miracles on a motorcycle, which is like Casey Stoner on a Ducati back in the day, or like Marc Marquez on the Honda, where nobody else could ride it except him. And he is all Yamaha has, and he is so good. Because of that, I believe that when everything goes like expected, that Fabio won't be challenged too much for the title by Pecco, especially when you consider that Pecco has a little bit of a habit of crashing when it comes to pressure situations. And maybe he's not mature enough to do so right now. Maybe next season, who knows? But Aleix is also in the mix. He's still a championship contender. He also had a couple of bad races, and with the broken heel, it came at the absolute wrong time. But he could make up some ground, but I still don't believe that he will catch Fabio, especially when you consider that Fabio is on paper the more skilled rider, and Aleix is doing his maximum. He's very consistent, but I don't feel like it's enough for the title. But, and this is a huge but, the overseas races are a huge wildcard, because Fabio and Pecco went there as rookies in 2019, where I'm not sure if Pecco really went, because he had some injury battles going on in the 2019 season. So I don't know, but Fabio went there for one season, and Pecco also as a rookie. And Aleix was there for a couple of seasons. He knows how to handle overseas races. He knows those tracks, and yeah, he knows basically more than Pecco and Fabio combined of what it takes to compete these races in late in the season on a MotoGP bike. And so overseas races are a huge wildcard. It could go either way. The last time they went there obviously was 2019. The bikes developed since then massively, so you don't know what to expect. And it's a little bit like Argentina, where Aleix won. It's like you went there one time as a rookie for Fabio and for Pecco, and Aleix won the thing. Maybe he wins there too. Maybe he can do something at the overseas races. But realistically speaking, I don't see anybody catching Fabio, because he's too consistent, he's too good, and he's always like on that line where it's as aggressive as you can get without being dangerous or without crashing, And he is very good. That's why I don't see anybody beating him. He's on a different level right now, and in my opinion, he's the best rider in the world. So another topic I would like to discuss is Marc Marquez, because there are speculations of him coming back this season. He said something like it would be foolish to wait to be 100% to ride again, where I have a different opinion, where I think especially Marc Marquez should wait to 100%. But yeah, at the end of the day, he only knows, when he crashes one more time, it could be his career end. I mean, every crash there is has the potential of an injury, and when you have a body like Marc Marquez, the risk is even higher. But yeah, it's his decision, and it would be very, very valuable for him to come back for the Misano test, to test the 2023 Honda. Maybe he will just do this without the races, and I don't see any benefit. There's also a speculation that he parted ways from Emilio Altamora. I don't know if that's true, it's just a speculation. But yeah, realistically speaking, I don't see Marquez coming back this season, because to me there's just no point. Maybe he will compete right in the tests, but yeah, apart from that, I don't really see any value for Marc Marquez to come back this season. And also next season will be very difficult for Honda when Ayogura, which is like the common belief that he will move up, and Sean Mir, which is also the common belief that he will go to Repsol, Alex Rins. Then they have 2-3 new riders, and Marc Marquez, who isn't necessarily the most experienced on this new Honda. So yeah, it would be a very difficult season. So therefore, I can see the value of Marc Marquez coming back for the tests, but let the man get healthy again. I mean, he endured so much, where I don't necessarily think that it's a smart idea to do so, but whatever. Coming to Moto2, which is very, very interesting, because when you talk about Moto2, especially at this time of the season, you always have like this, who's going to move up to MotoGP. And I believe Vietti, with his crash, put the nail in the coffin. He ain't gonna cut it for a MotoGP seat, even if he wins the championship later on. I guess it will be too late. The common belief is like Ogura and Fernandez will move up, but also in the championship it's so close. I mean, Vietti kind of fucked it up right now. Still, everything's possible. I mean, the overseas are an even bigger wildcard in the smaller classes, but because like everybody's basically a rookie on those tracks then. But also I believe Vietti is more out of the championship picture, especially with his recent form dropping a little bit. And then Ayogura, who did a very well job. He's very calm, he's very collected, he always takes the points as they come, but when he's on it, he's on it. And yeah, the way he battled with Chantra, I don't know if Chantra really wanted to challenge him. I would assume so, because why wouldn't you want to beat your teammate? That's the first one you gotta beat. But yeah, Augusto Fernandez disappointed a little. So it's looking good for Ayogura, and especially when he figures out how to qualify consistently at the front row, he can be the man to beat. Especially when it comes to consistency, he is very consistent, and I guess this could be also the key for the overseas races. But yeah, and Pedro came back. Pedro was out for, 6 weeks, 8 weeks with the broken leg. And he came back and immediately fought for the podium, which I didn't expect, because you would assume then with a broken leg that you can't train. So he is completely not off, but he's far away from 100% fitness. And then to compete there, you often see it when injured riders race, that they are good at the beginning of the race, but then drop off towards the end. I mean, you could argue that he dropped off a little bit in the last lap where Dixon overtook him, but still a very, very impressive race from Pedro. Even more impressive, I feel like, than Jake Dixon or Chandra, because I never broke a bone in my life, luckily, but I can only imagine how draining it must be, especially when you break your leg, that your complete fitness goes down, and then to compete in a MotoGP race is, it's very impressive. And I thought he was going to fade later on, but Pedro didn't fade. Pedro fought through, and so impressive his fourth position. I would say, a top 10. If you would have offered him a top 10 before the weekend, he would have taken it. But yeah, very impressive. And also with Pedro, he will probably stay in Moto2. All the Repsol rumors are bullshit as far as I'm concerned, just clickbait. But it's a smart move for him. And also Sasaki in Moto3 with 2 long laps winning the race, very, very impressive. Unfortunately, I missed most part of the Moto3 race because Remy and I met after the MotoGP warm-up, talked a little bit, so I missed the Moto3 race. He gave me this wonderful cap, so I have to say thank you again, Remy. And just saw the end, but Sasaki, especially when you hear all the comments he said, like, I knew nobody had the pace, so yeah, it's rather funny. And he's a very, very good, very, very good rider. I was a little bit scared because Fabio, the last time when Sasaki won a race and Jake Dixon finished third, he crashed. But now he managed to score the podium. So very good for Fabio. No bad luck, Sasaki. And when it comes to the episode with Maddi, I mentioned earlier, there's definitely one in the pipeline because the whole women in MotoGP thing is very interesting for me. So I would like to talk about this. And also she has a very, very wide perspective on what's actually going on inside the paddock. So the episode is definitely coming up. It's a little bit difficult because she is very busy with work, of course, and she's traveling through Europe with her soon-to-be husband. Is it fiancé or is fiancé just the female version? I don't know. Hope you forgive me that I don't know. But she's traveling Europe in the van. We met on Friday at the camping space in Austria, which was very fun. There's definitely an episode coming up. I don't know when, I don't know the topics, I don't know nothing, basically, just it will come up. So yeah, very, very excited for this. Maybe we can get one with Simon as well. And I I hope you enjoyed the episode, even though it's just a monologue. And see you again in like 2 weeks after Misano. Goodbye.